I battle the environmental left, which hides behind this shield of, I just care about the earth. I just care about the planet. No, you are putting in place ideas that are bringing about death, destruction, misery across the board. The Lahaina fires of Hawaii 18 months ago had the same start. Right? You're not allowed to cut down grass in these areas because we have to get back to nature. Well, you know what? When high grass is left unattended in the city of Maui because you think you're being natural, it catches on fire. One house has been rebuilt since then, 18 months. When people say, what's the future of California? It's been 18 months in Hawaii. One house has been rebuilt. Every other house is caught up in litigation, permitting, environmental. That sadly is going to be California's future. And it's going to be so infuriating to watch, and guaranteed it's going to happen because that's the environmental left. Misanthropic.
Daniel Turner is with Power of the Future, and we're going to talk about the fires in Southern California. This is a big topic. Most of you know that's my hometown. I was born, raised, educated on the West Coast, all in California. And I know the circumstances out there, but never have we seen anything like this. Had a couple of actresses over the weekend try to tell us that the only reason we're trying to hold Karen Bass accountable is because she's Black. No, that's not true. That's not true at all. There's a lot of blame to go around, and we're pointing just as much of it at Gavin Newsom, the governor, who is not Black, you may have noticed. So I'm just so tired of people doing that with this stuff. Regardless, Daniel Turner is with Power of the Future, and he knows a lot about the environmental concerns out in California, about maybe, the thinking behind not having these reservoirs filled. All of this, lots to chew on, lots to get to with Daniel. But let me remind you, please subscribe. We love having you on board, whether you're listening on Apple Podcasts, just click that subscribe button, whether you're on Rumble, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts, just subscribe so you never miss an episode. We love bringing this information to you. We're going to talk more with Daniel Turner. Could this have been better mitigated? So many questions, and people say, don't politicize this. No, not politics, policy making is what's under scrutiny right now. We'll get into it right after this. So much going on in the world. It's tough to sleep sometimes. And sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't get back to sleep. Let me tell you the product I've turned to that has made a massive difference in my sleep. I get such better sleep now thanks to Sleep Cream. No, I don't take a pill. I don't have a prescription. This is a cream that I just apply at bedtime. Simple as that. Now, I was a skeptic too, folks. I really was. But I tried it and it made a difference. The company is Sleep Cream. They use all natural CBD combined with the finest essential oils. Maybe you get the rose scent, which is so nice. Again, maybe I'll put it on the bottoms of my feet or on the insides of my forearms and elbows. You can find them at sleepcream.com. Try it for a couple nights. See if it works for you as well as it does for me. And if you don't experience better sleep, Sleep Cream will refund your purchase. Guaranteed. You don't have to return anything. Sleepcream.com. And that's Sleep Cream with cream spelled C-R-E-M-E, like creme. That's sleepcream.com, C-R-E-M-E. For the next few weeks, use the code GAMEDAY at checkout to get free standard shipping on your order. GameDay at checkout to get free standard shipping off your first order. Are you ready for your best sleep ever? Sleepcream.com, sleep, C-R-E-M-E.com. Daniel, thanks so much for joining us. When you and I first connected and we were going to talk about all these different energy things, the California wildfires had not happened yet. And so I think we've got to talk about that. And I know you've been active on X this week and maybe other places talking about the mistakes that were made, this insistence that this is all about climate change. First of all, as you've seen the reactions unfold, as you've seen people hurry to blame climate change for all of this and take some responsibility off those people who should have been better prepared for this, what's your initial reaction been?
Yeah, it's been really frustrating because we have this new culture in America where we seem to elect people as popularity contests, and they run on platforms of sexy issues and what makes news, and even our debates, whether it's presidential or mayoral, or our debates are done for the cameras and for optics. But governing is real and it's serious, and quite frankly, it's boring. I'm not surprised Governor Newsom doesn't want to do forest management. Who runs for mayor of California or anywhere to do forest management? No one runs to mayor to talk about electric grids and sewer systems and fire hydrants. Yet those are the things we put in the responsibility of our elected officials, and we focus on all these outside things, whether it's trans issues or abortion issues, and those are important. I'm not denying that they're not important, but we have basic infrastructure and sort of just civics responsibilities that seem to always get ignored. And that's my frustration with the climate argument, is that people like Governor Newsom use climate change to absolve themselves of the boring, minutia, unsexy, unexciting part of governing, which is management.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so freaking important. And, I think what they end up doing is you have all these departments of water, Department of Power, all these departments. And so all of these unelected bureaucrats doing the jobs, but I don't know if they're really being pushed to take preventative actions, to assess the situation as it really is. I mean, I think power grid issues are going to be massively important here in the future. I think they are now.
Yeah.
I don't know who's taking care of that. So, if you had an audience, let's start with Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles. If you had an audience, a private audience with her, where would you tell her to focus on?
Yeah, well, allocation of budget is huge. And of course, there's going to be a lot of blowback into how much do they actually cut from fire? How much do they cut from other utilities? Money that they've spent on, again, exciting things like gay men choirs and trans puppet shows and all of those things. But it is the mayor's responsibility to know why there's no water in the fire hydrants. And say,
or in the reservoirs.
That's pretty basic, right? And especially the Santa Ana winds are a known quantity. Yes, 100-mile-an-hour sustained winds is stronger than normal, and maybe there's a conversation. Is that climate related? That's a great conversation. But they are a known quantity, these winds, and it's happening now.
Yeah, I grew up there. I grew up in Southern California. I'm very familiar with the Santa Ana winds, and they're just part of the deal. And you knew every year when they started, you can smell them, you can feel them, you can almost taste them. They are there. They are real.
Yeah.
She got the warning a couple days before she left for Africa that these winds were going to be high and that the fire danger was real. And she left anyway. How irresponsible is that? Because there are a lot of people coming to her defense and saying, sure, she knew this fire was going to break out.
Exactly. But what did she do as precaution? The day that she got that briefing, the fire was, last I saw, fewer than 300 acres, which is still a substantial fire. I'm talking to you from my farm in Virginia. It is not 300 acres, but 300 acres is a good size fire, but that's a manageable fire compared to the 45,000 acres they are up to now. How was a 300-acre fire not squashed, and how did you get on a plane to leave the country when that happened? Look, here even just one small example. During the droughts of California from a couple years ago, it was illegal to use your gardening hose to water your lawn, to water outside foliage. I get it. There was a drought. The drought's been over for the last 3 years. That law was never rescinded. So it's still illegal. So you have between these homes just these whole lots of dry shrubs, of burnt out bushes. That's a known fire hazard. If you're going to pass a law that says you can't use your hose to water bushes and flowers and grass, then you have to do something to say you can't have hundreds of acres of dead bushes and flowers and grass in an area that's known for high propensity to fire. Right? These are just common sense things.
Yeah, common sense is the key word here, and that's been lacking in governance for a long time in a lot of places. But I can see, Daniel, and tell me if you think I'm onto something here, or maybe I'm repeating something that's already been said. I can see now laws being passed where
Mhm.
you must have automatic sprinkler systems within your land to make sure that every 1 or 2 days this brush gets some water. And there's this other question about, I mean, look, we have to have smoke alarms in our homes.
Mhm.
That's a code requirement. And places have to have sprinkler systems in case fires do erupt. That's code. So why wouldn't there be code for the outside too? You can talk about drought, but there's this story about all this water, rainwater that came this year in snow in California that was diverted into the ocean. The Chinese US Treasury hack, a new virus spreading in China. What else is unfolding behind the scenes that, we're not learning about, we're not being told about, or worse, what critical information is being hidden from the public? Why gamble with your financial future, regardless of who's in office? I don't care who's sitting behind the Oval Office. Safeguarding your wealth is essential. Many of us are hopeful in Trump's return, but we all remember the challenges of the last election and the interference that hindered progress. So relying solely on digital systems or banks, that's a risk you can't afford to take. And that's why I want you to take a look at American Independence Gold. Visit tafoyagold.com now to learn more, or call 833-324-4653. I'll repeat those for you. Tafoya Gold, TAFOYAGOLD.com, or call 833-324-4653. For generations, gold and silver have been the ultimate safe haven, weathering wars, recessions, market crashes. This is more than just owning gold. It's about taking control of your financial future. As a proud veteran-owned company, I love that, American Independence Gold goes the extra mile by supporting military families. And they cover custodial fees for life on qualifying accounts and donate a portion of every purchase to Tunnels to Tower Foundation. I love that organization. Don't wait to secure your future. Act before it's too late. Visit tafoyagold.com now to learn more, or here's the number again, 833-324-4653. That's 833-324-4653, or tafoyagold.com. Make the smart move for your future today at tafoyagold.com. You can find all of that in the show notes. But there's this story about all this water, rainwater that came this year in snow in California that was diverted into the ocean.
Yeah.
What do you know about that?
Yeah, and there was money allocated from Sacramento and also on the federal level to build these reservoirs or to enhance whatever reservoirs are existing to gather this water that's coming from, California has had record snowfall the last couple of winters, melted, gone right into the Pacific, etc. These are the types of infrastructure projects. A lot of times they're stopped also by environmental groups that say you can't build a reservoir here, you can't protect this pristine habitat of the sage grouse or the short-haired grackle or whatever animal they use to stop development. But these are the types of precautions that we have to take. And there's a larger issue here, which is a more philosophical one. Nature is brutal, right? What you're seeing in California is Mother Nature, and nature is fire, it's hurricanes, it's tornadoes. What makes humans unique is our ability to create structures that allow us to coexist and overcome the forces of nature. So we don't have the deaths that we used to from hurricanes, not because there are fewer hurricanes, but because we have warning systems, we have sea walls, we have hurricane resistant structures and construction, and that's ingenuity, that's building. We're not going to stop tornadoes, but we can create structures that help us survive tornadoes. California seems to be the only place in the world that still plays victim. And to prove that this is bad policy, there are many places in America, not just the world, in America, that are hotter than California, drier than California, have stronger wind than California, and yet they don't burn. Oregon doesn't have these fires. Western Nevada doesn't have these fires. Northwest Arizona doesn't have these fires. Southwest Idaho doesn't have these fires. It's only California and always California. And if you're going to tell me that it's micro-targeted climate change, I'm going to say you're a liar.
Yeah, that would be climate change's microaggression toward the wealthy in California. That's what that would be. So can we then say what makes California unique in this, in all those places you just described, is the politics, the
Yeah.
policy making?
100%. And California prides itself on being the leader of the environmental left. They have the strongest environmental policies, the most progressive environmental policies, and unabashedly so, and with no opposition, right? This California has been controlled by one party for decades now, and it is presented as their utopia. So why is it not working? And if you're going to say, well, again, climate change, then I don't believe you. And I tweeted this the other day, and it's something that it bothers me so much because I know there's such a loss of life. 26 people so far, loss of property, and property, not just material things, but memories and cherished items and grandmother's heirlooms and gone. And that's devastating.
Businesses that you
Oh,
built.
and you know what? My family lost their home in Hurricane Sandy 12 plus years ago, and as did my uncle, who was a congressman at the time, as did my cousins, as did my brothers. I mean, all of New York, Atlantic coast was destroyed in Hurricane Sandy. So I know what these people are going through, without a doubt, and it is devastating. And you rebuild, but it is devastating. But what angers me so much about these policies is that if you really believed climate change, if you really believed it, Gavin Newsom, then you would take the necessary steps to climate change proof your state. But you didn't. So you don't really believe it's climate change. If you really believed a storm was coming, you would take precautions. If you believed wind was coming, right? You look at the preppers and you can say, all right, those guys are crazy. They believe it's coming. I don't know what it is, but they're ready. They have guns. They have food. You can say they're crazy, but they're authentic. Gavin Newsom says climate change is coming, and how do we prepare? Nothing. We do absolutely nothing. We file lawsuits and we tell Donald Trump he's not welcome. So
Yeah.
you yourself don't believe climate change is real. Your actions prove it.
I'm taking notes on what you just said because it's so important, and that's what I was thinking too. If all of you in California and all up and down along the West Coast believe that climate change is an existential threat, yet you allowed your reservoirs to go dry, for fire hydrants not to have proper power, but you were out there fighting for reparations, and I'm not saying anything like you. You can talk about abortion. We can. Well, I was going to say we can walk and chew gum at the same time, but I'm not sure we can anymore, or
No.
are willing to, at least in governance, because it seems to me they can just talk about these virtue signaling issues and let the other stuff go by the wayside until there's a disaster. And what's the thing to point to? Climate change.
Exactly.
What realistically, in California, you do have conditions, whether it's earthquakes, whether it's these wildfires, which, like I said, I grew up there. I know these things are not uncommon. You've got earthquakes, you've got winds, you've got all the droughts. Is there a way, if you take the California budget, is there a way, do you think, that you can balance these things and keep people safe? Because bottom damn line for government is public safety. That is the top line priority. And it might be boring and it might be unsexy, but when the rubber meets the road, and we're experiencing that right now, and it's something, the crap hits the fan. I'm trying to clean that up. That's when you appreciate preparedness. I will say that in Florida, Ron DeSantis has done that so well.
Yeah. No one's going to chastise you for slipping out a curse word, because it makes you want to curse. It makes you very angry.
Yeah.
And we should be angry without a doubt. But there aren't even things California needs to do. There are things California needs to undo. So, for example, we talk about river and water management because of whether it's the Smelt, whether it's the salmon. I tweeted an article from just a year ago where Governor Newsom talks about dismantling 6 more dams in California to allow access of fish. I love fish, right? I live on a farm.
Big salmon fan here.
Absolutely. And I don't want to destroy nature. But you have to look at it this way. There was a time not long ago that there were packs of coyotes in Central Park, and the coyotes lost because development had to happen. We don't have a coyote shortage in America, but are there no more coyote in Central Park? Yes, because people need to live and they need to develop and prosper, and that unfortunately is nature at work. Right? If the smelt in California disappear, is it tragic? To a certain extent, yeah, I'm sure it is. But the smelt haven't disappeared, just in that one river of California. And in response, or in return for the smelt disappearing, is you now have this reservoir that has water that is through a pipeline system, so that if a fire were to start, we're able to put out the fire. I put people above smelt. I don't think that should shock your average American.
You just hit on a really important point. Let me tell you again about sleep cream. If you're having trouble sleeping, I use this stuff. I have it on my nightstand every single night. It is not a drug. It is not a prescription. It's a cream. Now, was I a skeptic? Because I'm sure that you are. Yeah, I was. And then I tried it for a night or two and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm sleeping better. So the company is Sleep Cream. They use all natural CBD combined with beautifully fine essential oils. So what I do is I'll put it on the insides of my forearms and wrists, the insides of my elbows where that you have that really thin skin, or maybe on the bottoms of my feet. And within minutes, Sleep Cream helps me relax and go to sleep. That's what you're supposed to do. You can find them at sleepcream.com. Just try Sleep Cream for a couple of nights. See if it works for you. If you don't experience better sleep, guess what? Sleep Cream will refund your purchase, guaranteed. You don't have to return anything. Look, go to sleepcream.com, and cream is spelled C-R-E-M-E. That's sleepcream.com, C-R-E-M-E. And for the next few weeks, use the code GAMEDAY at checkout. And what you can do is get free standard shipping off your first order. That's GameDay at checkout to get free standard shipping off your first order. If you are ready for your best sleep ever, and who's not, go to sleepcream.com, sleep, C-R-E-M-E.com.
Your average American.
You just hit on a really important point. You put people above smelt. And these environmentalists sometimes are so radical that they put smelt above people.
Yes.
Like, so, I would just ask them to go look these victims in the eye. Go to these people whose houses are gone, whose livelihoods are gone, everything taken by these fires, and tell them the smelt were that important, were worth that trade-off. I don't think they could do it. And
No.
it's a kind of virtuous thinking, but it's first level thinking, like dig next. Like, okay, what happens if we do? I use this example. Forgive me on this tangent, but when I was growing up in Southern California, I remember the day that the grocery stores stopped using paper bags and switched to plastic. Why? They didn't want to kill trees. Mm-hmm. Trees are one of the most renewable sources on planet Earth. They didn't want to kill trees. So they used that note as, let's do plastic bags instead. But they didn't do the second level thinking that said, what might plastic bags do to the environment? Are these renewable? Are they recycling? Sure, we can make more and more and more. What do we do with them after we're done with them? Yeah. No one does the second level thinking. They do what feels good. Yay, we're saving trees. So in this case, yay, we're saving smelt. Or yes, we're putting water back in the ocean like nature wants us to. Nature also gave humans a brain and a mind for thinking and a way to protect ourselves. As you said, we're fighting Mother Nature all the time. So why does that, humans are viewed as the bullies. And in some cases, humans are bullies. But in this case, we're alive. We're here. We deserve to live off this land.
We do. And we deserve to live with dignity and prosperity. And I'm a fossil fuel advocate. It's why I started my organization, because I'll argue that it's the fossil fuel industry and the products that it makes that give us the ability to live with dignity and live with prosperity. So I will always argue in favor of humans above all others on this planet. And of course we have to coexist, and of course we have to be respectful, and we do, because of the fossil fuel industry and because of the products it gives us. But the environmental left, the radical left, is a deeply misanthropic organization. Their viewpoints are are evil as far as I'm concerned. And I'll give you an example. Just a couple days ago, President Biden gave the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Jane Goodall. Everyone knows her. She taught the chimpanzees how to play the piano or whatever. She's probably a fascinating primate researcher. Great books. Cool that she lived with the monkeys in Africa. All that is fine. She talks about how we need to return to the 17th century population to have the 17th century climate. And she says that advocates it. We need to return. That's 80% of the world population dying. Well, who should die? And when you say that you want to kill off 80% of the world, what people on this planet right now don't deserve to be here? What countries? What populations? And of course, she'll say, oh, no, look, I'm just talking hypothetically. Well, there are no hypotheticals, right? We don't live in a hypothetical world. Hypothetically, it's great that the Smelt came back. Hypothetically, it's great that we don't use paper bags, we use plastic. But there are real world consequences to ideas. And radical green ideas, just like any idea, have to be put into play. And by putting them into play, if you've made misery and hardship and you've weakened human life, then I think we have to question whether or not your ideas are working. So I battle the environmental left, which hides behind this shield of, I just care about the earth. I just care about the planet. No, you are putting in place ideas that are bringing about death, destruction, misery across the board. The Lahaina fires of Hawaii 18 months ago had the same start. Right? You're not allowed to cut down grass in these areas because we have to get back to nature. Well, you know what? When high grass is left unattended in the city of Maui because you think you're being natural, it catches on fire. One house has been rebuilt since then, 18 months. When people say, what's the future of California? It's been 18 months in Hawaii. One house has been rebuilt. Every other house is caught up in litigation, permitting, environmental. That sadly is going to be California's future. And it's going to be so infuriating to watch, and guaranteed it's going to happen because that's the environmental left. Misanthropic.
I do not believe that people are playing politics with this situation when they point the fingers at people who need to be held accountable. That's this. We want accountability. We also want people to see exposed now, like you said, how these ideas, the best, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. We're in hell now in Southern California based on some good intentions that were really not wise, not smart. You can be well-intended, but not wise about your thinking and your planning. And so I don't say this as a political thing. I say this as a governance thing. Do you think, because someone asked me this yesterday, me having lived half of my life, the first half of my life, born, raised, educated in California, Northern and Southern. Someone asked me, do you think this will really change the voters in California and the way that they see people like Gavin Newsom, like Karen Bass, some of these people who are charging ahead with all of these leftist ideas, who didn't do the next level thinking, who didn't prepare for this situation, and who responded pathetically? I don't blame that on the fire department. I know you're in Virginia, but you're close to the seat of politics and your family has been involved. What do you think? Is this enough of a wake-up call for California?
That's a tough one. And my hunch is going to be no, but what will happen is that it will force more people to leave the state. You look at the populations of Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Arkansas, right? There is a mass exodus to, and you can say it's left, right, blue, red, Republican, whatever. Democrat, but ultimately it's people want functioning government and lower taxes and prosperity and less crime. California leads the nation in exodus only because it's the largest state. New York, my home state. I mean, I left when I left 30 years ago. I mean, I left 32 years ago. And I never, once I graduated high school and never returned because it was a poorly run, and I just hated it. And I hated the Dinkins administration in New York City that made me afraid to take the subway every day to school. And I don't want to live like this. I give my family a lot of credit. They say we've been in New York City since the 1820s. We're not leaving. This is our city. I say I'm going to go live with my family where people respect me and my values and my tax dollars. So I think that's what's going to happen with California. People are going to leave. And you know, Florida gets belted with hurricanes all the time, and it always will. In fact, the whole scoop of the Gulf of Mexico and the Carolina coasts is hundreds of millions of years of hurricanes belting Florida, but people are still moving there. They don't care about the hurricanes.
Hang on, though. I got to correct you on one thing. I think it's going to be the Gulf of America if Trump has his way.
Because they know that competency wins. I mean, and they see Governor DeSantis competent. And you know what? If Governor DeSantis passed rules that said we're going to start building, you know, hotels floating on pylons in the water, people would be like, that's not too smart of a decision. Well, California has made similar bad decisions and bad policies, and that's the response. Yeah. So I think people are going to flee to states that work and that function, and
that's really interesting. It's true here of where I live now. Why I went from California to Minnesota would take a whole nother show to explain. But here I sit. But we face similar political headwinds here in Minnesota, where it's some really that feel good kind of mentality of doing things for well-intended reasons can come back to bite you in a big way. I can't wait to have you on again, because I want to talk about the absurdity of, we need battery operated this and that because we can't use fossil fuels, but how do you make batteries? What does that take? That whole ridiculousness. So anywho, listen, Daniel Turner, you can find him on everywhere, and you can find just tell people where the best place is that you want them to go, because I lost my place on my iPad.
Well, our website is powerthefuture.com. People can email me, Daniel@powerthefuture.com, if you have questions or concerns, or you want to ask a question about wind or solar or EVs or batteries or climate or oil and gas and coal and why we need all these things. I mean, there's such big issues, and we barely scratched the surface, but it was great to talk to you. So thank you so much.
We'll do it again for that reason, Daniel. He just gave you his email. He just invited you to join a conversation with him about all of these issues that are important, just as important as any other social issues that we can talk about. Daniel, great to see you. Thank you so much for your time today.
Real pleasure. Thanks, Michelle.
That was a brave, good move by Daniel. I want to point that out, because I always end my show saying, be brave, do good. He just gave you his email. So if you want to talk to him, reach out. Thanks for listening, anyone. See you next time.